The way this will look is because this is beginner level, anyways, even just general conversations. Um, the sitting portion, we're going to do a little breathing and sit initially. That's going to take about 5 minutes just to kind of ground you down to create that intentional pause from what you have done earlier today. It's evening time, so I'm hoping this is your transitional period to help you ease into a state of sleep where hopefully dreams are minimized, because that's when that subconscious comes forward and the brain still talks and the body responds. And we really want you to get a sense of rest when you sleep, because when your body actually experiences rest, it starts to regenerate, it heals. Mother Nature is very much running through our veins. And if we just let her do her thing, you just benefit so much, and everyone around you benefits because you're just in a healthier frame of mind. So we'll talk a little bit once we come out of that initial grounding down period. I'll discuss a few things in the emails, and in the links after this, there will be my notes that I go off of. So if you miss something, don't stress out about it. You're going to get this information again. Just really listen. Don't try not to have an agenda. Just take in the words, see what sits with you. And then when we're done talking, we're going to do an actual more formal Vipassana, just mindfulness sit. I'm going to talk every 15 seconds of just going back to your breath, because within 15 seconds, our mind gets distracted. And knowing that you aren't alone, all of our brains do this. Um, and so, yeah, that's what it will look like. And I will have y'all out of here, done, wrapped up within an hour, maybe a little less. It depends on the day. Um, if y'all have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can type in the comments if you want. Everyone else benefits from those. This may be a dumb question. Stop it. That's a judging mind statement. There's no dumb questions. We all have questions. And so I will teach you to stop doing that over time if you bear with me. And for me, on a personal stint, for those of you who are just now sitting with me for the first time, um, my why for this is I've dealt with depression most of my life, very traumatic childhood. Um, that is a constant work for me, and I have found these tools have been helpful for me. And I know a lot of other people deal with a lot of deep emotional experiences, and even just taking in life right now. Um, it can be painful. We can feel a lot of things, but we can also choose how we respond to that and pause and not let the emotions take us away. Easy for me to say. I've cried every day for like the last 3 years. So, but we want to stay afloat. We want to stay in this human experience and find each other who feel this way so we don't feel alone, because we take shelter and community in each other, and that we may have to leave our home to find the family. I am one of those. I had to leave home to find my family. um, that's not a new storyline. Most people are like that, and that's okay. If you fall into that group too, welcome. Okay, so put everything down. I know I just said a lot. Put it all down. Find a comfy seat. I don't care what that looks like. Try not to even have an agenda with that. Close the eyes. I want you to just take a slow, deep breath in through the nose and just let it go. Repeat that a few more times. Breathing in and release. Keep going. Noticing that your breath is a built in mechanism to calm you down in the moment. Sometimes that is all we have. To get closer to the breath, take a hand and place it on your chest. And feel your chest press into the hand with the breath, and feel the chest fall as the breath leaves you. And just acknowledge, is this your first time to stop today? not adding anything to the situation, just sitting here, realizing that you are in this body. We use this body to touch the present moment through the five senses. Are you hot? Are you cold? How's the pressure in your seat? Are you sitting on the hard floor, a hard chair, in your bed, something cushioned? And assuming you're in your physical address of home, your shelter, four walls, ceiling, doors, locks. In this moment, do you really feel at home? Notice what the mind does with just the few moments of quiet, of silence. Notice any discomfort just sitting here, making the time out of your day, physically being still. Where are the sensations starting to arise? And just observe, how does the mind want to respond? Are there any knee jerk responses? Shift, adjust. Feeling this breath and letting it just have its natural rhythm. As we sit, less than an hour left now, you can do this. You can sit, you can be here. But any time that you notice your mind is drifting off, just come to the breath. Let the breath be 25% of your awareness. Background noise, music, your anchor. Take your hand down away from your chest. One more deep inhale through the nose. Eyes open. Exhale through the mouth. Taking a moment. That was less than 5 minutes. How does it feel just to stop? Maybe you're just a little more calm. You're kind of just a little more in touch with yourself. If you're able to maybe share in one word or two words, how are you feeling? And not just from the sit, but how are you doing today in this moment? How are you from the last 24 or 48 hours? You don't have to share, but you can type it in just so I can kind of have an idea. You may not know. You may not. That may be asking too much of you right now. And I get that too. I get that. Ragged. I see you, Rachel. I feel you. I feel you. I've been, yeah. Mm. Tired. Good. It's welcome. That is a good sign. Most people, their minds don't let them do this. Most people, their minds don't welcome this at all. That's why it's hard. And hey, Mondays are crazy. So I'd rather anchor y'all on a Monday night because Mondays are really brutal. And sometimes Tuesdays can be that bitchy sister to Mondays. And so we can ground down now. That's something else my teacher used to teach me. So it's all in how you look at it. Okay. Well, what I wanted to talk about tonight, because this is technically kicking off the community class. So from here, let's just see how this grows and flourishes. The whole idea, um, my background, roots growing up tribal, my first 18 years raised in the um, Christian tradition, Baptist Plus Church. Um, but there was just a lot of missing pieces, a lot of holes that were it made it hard to make sense. And recently, I've been getting back and finding some different theologians across the world, um, a lot of Episcopal priests that go more into the mindfulness, more into the contemplative, still yourself, calm yourself down. And so a lot of what we talk, but my meditation teacher is strict Buddhist. And so I'm trying to blend the two of those. That's where I'm coming from, and a very neutral, practical. This is for anybody across the board, no matter what you're doing. If you're interacting with other people, I hope this stuff helps. That's all I care about. If this can bring you any type of internal peace, we've been able to reduce the collective suffering, even if it's by a tiny smidge. So that's what's most important. Um, my teacher, so my meditation teacher, his anthem, if anybody knows me and has seen how I've taught over the years, my mantra, if you want to say, is yes, you can. The whole idea behind that is to bring those voices out that say, yes, you can do this, not the doubt. And my meditation teacher over in California, his is against the stream of everyday society occurrences, what's most effortless, and how can you just go with the flow without putting up too much work? What's the easiest route to take, the most comfort? um, Society, it's very natural, animal instincts to want to go for everything that's pleasurable. However, that's not life. Life has that balance of unpleasant, pleasant, and neutral experiences. And if we can just keep it as that, we're already minimizing a lot of the chatter in the mind. So much of our chatter tends to be petty, tends to be shallow digs, judgments, planning, um, factoring fear in making our decisions. Um, because sometimes the most worthwhile things, your fear is trying to talk you out of. I brought it up last week in the class. How often does our mind talk us out of happiness versus how many times the mind tries to talk us in to happiness? You know what I mean? Like, we can know peace, but our mind doesn't know peace. Our mind is always working. And so my teacher, his whole thing was going against the stream. So going with the stream, there's that whole idea of that natural energetic current taking you. You don't have to do much. Most people coast through life. But if you also look at the world, most people are unhappy. Most people are not content. Most people will laugh at me if I say practice a little bit of gratitude, right? Um, and most people don't do a damn thing about it. They just sit with it. I don't think that's anybody's fault. I have so many people in my immediate DNA family who are like that. It's not their fault. If I look at how we were raised and the conditioning we were all brought up in different ways and different traditions, that very much shapes who we are at 18, 19, 20 years old. And those pivotal times where hopefully the conditioning was somewhat right so we could interact and start to imprint these choices as young adults so we can start to create those good habits early in life. That doesn't happen for a lot of people. A lot of us, it takes us a little time to get there, um, because that conditioning does change that animal instinct, that fear, that trigger. No, I got to self protect, and so that's going with the stream. Going against the stream is choosing, let's see, going against the stream looks like this. Do y'all try to battle against your hate right now that you feel? No matter the situation, if you feel hate in your body or an emotion come up, something just really frustrates you, and there's a lot of that popping up in the world right now in different mediums. Um, Going against the stream is fighting against the hate that you feel, trying to find a way not to feel that way next time. Going with the stream is giving up. I'm just going to hate. I'm just going to let it happen. I'm going to let my emotions go wild. I'm going to let my mind go wild. You see, we can all see people, even maybe in the workplace. There's a lot of people that don't have that self awareness. And this is where you hear in a lot of the meditation circles. This is what it means to awaken. You're just waking up and you're seeing what's happening, and you see yourself floating along all these other miserable people, and there are no tools to teach us, especially in Western society. I mean, we're all about consumption, anything to avoid, to self soothe in the moment, but the problem's still going to be there. It doesn't change anything. And that's the wrong stream to go against. You're avoiding stuff where usually people who meditate, people who are in recovery, things like that, they're pushed to a place where they're tired of the suffering. They're sick of it. Like something has to change. That's the motivation. That's the inspiration that pushes them to do something different. My depression, my suicide attempts, to put it more real for you. Okay. Different story if I didn't have kids, but my inspiration are my children. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go against the stream, because me going with the stream and going along with everything that's happening right now and just choosing not to make an effort is causing me a lot of suffering. And that ripples to my children, to the kids in their class, and so forth. Is that making sense? It's really hard. Most people give up. I can't tell you, as much as a yoga teacher for 13 years, I swear my student loans would be paid off if I had $1 for every time somebody said they aren't flexible enough for yoga. I've been teaching meditation a little more seriously with clients one-on-one for the past 3 years. Um, and I should start to have a dollar jar for this when they say, yeah, I tried to meditate once. I can't do it. My mind won't let me. Yeah, well, I tried the violin once and I can't do it either. This is why we call it a practice, my friends. Does that make sense? And it's in the idea that this is a practice. That's where you find the grace. That's where you find the compassion for yourself. You can't help it. Our heart pumps blood, our mind thinks. You can't help it. Dogs run wild, cats are cats. If you look at all these different things, there is a limit, there is a level of this is just how it is. So are we going to keep on suffering over it, or are we going to keep on clinging for only the things that feel good? Or are we just going to sit down and face the shit for what it is? Some days it's going to be okay, other days it's not. But there are circles out there that do discuss this stuff and how you can try it. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with what's going on up there. There's a lot of stuff happening these days. 50 years ago, no one had the social media. No one was as plugged in and was as aware of all the things. I shared that, I grew up in the church. Um, I almost kind of feel like this may be what they're talking about when eating the fruit from the tree, the knowledge, things that you need to know. We know a little too much right now. I know too much right now. I know way too much. And I know, because we know too much, the sensitivity to just the human condition has gone completely by the wayside. You very rarely meet sensitive people these days. They don't know that they've lost the sensitivity because no one's supposed to talk about it. No one brings it up, push it down, keep moving forward, while we all just let it fester inside and we're all completely miserable. Does that make sense? So going against the stream, I feel going against the stream, the correct streams. There's all sorts of streams. You know, don't go against the stream. Don't go against the law. I don't recommend that. That's not the right stream to go against. I mean, that's relative, maybe. I'll stop talking. Um, we are trained to think pleasure equals happiness. That's the stream. As long as we're feeling pleasure, we're happy. As soon as I get this, as soon as this happens, as soon as this happens. That's planning, and that's not being in the moment here and now, even when it's messy. The only reason why I'm able to do what I'm doing is because I faced all the stuff that was going on internally. And my teacher taught me everybody feels this way. I'm like, well, why aren't more people talking about this? I'm one of 5 children. No one shared with me to shut up growing up. So I just was fine telling people this is how it is. This isn't right. This is wrong. Did not work well with a narcissistic stepdad. And I hated that no one told me that I needed to be quiet. I'll be safer that way. I won't be punished. I won't experience all those things. Well, now in the real world, it's still the same way with marriage, with all sorts of things. You aren't supposed to talk about this, but these are our experiences. And it's more important to me that we all learn these tools to lessen our own suffering. Like with my epilepsy, I wasn't just going to take medication because that's not fixing the problem. That's just fixing the symptoms. I don't want to just fix the symptoms. I want the symptoms just to stop. So I have to go back a little further. Um, is that making sense? So, where to start with all this? I'm going to ask you real quick when we sat for the 3, 4 minutes, did you notice how your mind is everywhere? Was it loud? Did it have a lot to say? Were you still elsewhere? Were you still in the day? And you can nod. You don't have to say anything. These are more so, I just want you to let this sit for a minute. Um, like I said, where we start, there has to be a level of dissatisfaction from the status quo, from something that's been happening thus far to really get us to change. In the same breath, there are a lot of traditions, whether it's spiritual or not, philosophical, we'll say philosophical, practicing gratitude. That's a universal recalibration of mental and emotional stability. Even down to I have several clients who are in recovery, um, not just alcohol, drugs, just things across the board. And a big thing that they teach in the recovery meetings is having the attitude of gratitude in the sense of instead of hating themselves for the event that forced them into rehab, that got them arrested, or whatever really triggered all of this change and this effort moving forward, even though it was really crappy, even though my last suicide attempt was uncomfortably way too close, I'm grateful for it because it did cause a domino effect for me to start to get healthy in a completely different way. The arrest, the car accident, whatever it was for my addicts, to an extent, they can be grateful for it because it did put them on a new path of trying to better themselves. Is that making sense? That's the awakening, knowing that you aren't a zombie, you aren't a robot with everybody else. You're supposed to feel. Don't ignore the feelings. Everything is legitimate, in my opinion. Everything belongs, everything is welcome. If you see emotions, emotions and mind and thoughts are two different levels. Okay. Emotions tend to be a little bit more permanent. Emotions tend to take us down. That's that undercurrent of the stream. With the mental aspect of it, depending on how you want to look at it, just imagine each thing that you feel or think is a boat. You don't want to hop in the boat and let the boat take you away. You want to stay on the bank and just watch the boats go by. And sometimes the boats are going to get all caught up and they can't move. Thoughts get really jumbled and you don't even know what to do. Many people will then go to their automatic soothing ritual, whether that's online shopping, that's um, running, that's eating, cutting. It goes across the board. We all have our ways of self soothing. Okay. Um, we need to find a way not to just go for the comfort and ignore what's actually happening. Deal with what's happening, because when you start to deal with it, it starts to not happen as much. The more we practice sitting, the more we practice breathing, the more we practice realizing and being with ourselves in the moment, as the moments come and go, each moment conditions the next moment. So even if your karmic past and everything was just a mess for you, you can choose right now to start to do something different. And usually, those of us who sit and meditate, those of us who've had a real, just earth shaking experience, those are the inspirations that trigger that change. And it has to be something, no one can do it for us. That's what sucks. So, those people who are just there floating with the stream, no one can help them. They just have to choose, oh, I'm just floating down the stream. It doesn't have to be this way. Yeah, I'm discontent. I'm unhappy with my job. I mean, my experience, I'm really unhappy being in Texas. My level of unhappiness and discomfort has not reached a point where I can move yet. I know it's coming, but it's not there yet. Is that making sense? You get to a place where if the discomfort and things just stay as they are, it's not going to get any better. And if you lessen your suffering, the happiness will come because the suffering is gone. That's the exchange. Because you can get happiness just by having it peaceful, by nothing else happening. And that's rare. Even those of us who sit and breathe, there's still all the grocery lists. There's all the things I got to do. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? Can anybody relate to any of this? Or am I just talking out of my ass?
Very relatable.
Okay, good.
Good stuff.
So here's another reflection question for you. My therapist does this with me all the time. So this is kind of, I try to share with y'all the tools that I learn as well. I've been in therapy now 18 years, and so everything else about 13 years. So it doesn't always look pretty, but it does make sense. And it's one of those things. What was the suffering that pushed you to your limits? To look into meditation, to look into therapy, to look into something has to change. What was the suffering that pushed you to your limits? Is there something pushing you to your limits? Because remember, the difficulties are the practice, that is the path. I'm so sick to death of everybody saying, well, if it wasn't easy, nobody would do it. It's like, and that's that clinging. We wish it would be easier. Why can't the world just be easier? Why doesn't the government have their crap together more? Why this, why that? And that is a domino effect in itself. The minute you see your mind start to do those things, it's clinging to something that it wishes was happening instead of being here. Is that making sense? That's kind of a way to flag it, a way to flag your mind if if we ever get back to meeting people in person. And you can probably reflect on this just even in the last 5, 6 years, probably. Um, how many times have you met somebody and you needed them to repeat their name? Because you probably were somewhere else, right, when you met them. And then as you start to, I'm sorry, can you say your name again? Happens all the time. It's so regular. Quit getting impatient with it. It's fine, not a big deal. That is the human experience. And if you can learn to teach your mind to stop having the comments and start to almost have a relationship to mind, capital M. You aren't your mind. I can't tell you how many times when I am really deep in my dark place, those are the only words that get me through. I am not these thoughts. This is not going to last forever. I think science shows your emotional, strong emotional, like if you're I feel like my whole body gets hot. My armpits immediately start sweating if I'm really angry about something. And I tend to be much more sensitive like that if I don't sit. My frayed feelings really catch almost everything that comes my way. And I can feel it completely rise up and almost arrest me, is what my therapist says. Um, that arresting take that phase is 90 seconds. And then chemically it goes away. Chemically it goes away. Is that okay for everybody? Do you hear that? So when you're really feeling like you're getting taken for a ride by emotions, by thoughts, by anger, jealousy, we learn over time. And when I say over time, the rest of your life, the rest of your life, it doesn't, it doesn't get easier. You just get stronger with it and more comfortable with it and more tolerant to everything that's going on internally. And we all go through the phases, especially once you start to see it all. I remember thinking, wow, why isn't everybody else on my same page? But again, it's the conditioning. A lot of people don't know these tools are there, and it can be so practical. What's so funny, my
Mm.
therapist actually, she's been reading a little bit more on um, just very basic Buddhism to understand where I'm coming from on some of when I talk about aversion, when I try to discuss some of these things. And she did some research. She said about 6 to 7% of declared Buddhists out there actually sit and meditate. So you don't have to be one thing or another. Meditation is just learning to sit quietly and watch that mind work. There's all sorts of ways you can take it, you can spice it up, but this is basic chicken noodle soup. You can go to different traditions and lineages, all this stuff if you want to. I can give you all the authors. I can send you to whichever continent you want. They're like underground, deep. They don't have website type things. They aren't in touch like that. Um, But anybody can do this. You can teach your children, your nieces, your nephews, your parents who are starting to get dementia. I mean, just teaching them work, sit with the breath, go to the breath. It's so hard and it's so frustrating that it's that simple. And no one believes that it's that simple. But it's really hard to keep up. But those of us who sit and do it, even if I don't sit every day, I always have that intention and that right effort to come back. Does that make sense? It's not always going to look pretty. It may be in your car. It may be when you're stuck in traffic. It may be in a bathroom stall, in your shower, in a bubble bath. I don't know what, it doesn't have to look like anything. Just to be able to, sitting and breathing 3 minutes, set a timer. Those of you, if this is your first night with me in the beginner series, I tell you that just sit for 3 minutes. Have a clock going. You can have some non lyrical music, but being able just to sit and deal with that little bit of discomfort of just sitting. Those are 2 pound weights, starting small, 3 minutes. And you would be pleasantly surprised at what happens. But I will warn you, it's not fun because there's a lot of gunk. If you haven't cleaned house in a while, it's really dusty and messy. Who cares? As you start to do it, you start to trust your instincts more. You start to have more compassion for yourself. And anybody who is their own whipping boy, I'm my own whipping boy quite a bit of the time, this really puts down the switch and the suffering stops. So much of it is in our fucking head. And it's not your fault. That's just mind, capital M, mind just acting as they want to act, but you can choose. You are not their pet. You are not the mind's pet. You control the mind. You can choose how it really responds to things. And it just starts by just seeing what is, what's causing suffering, what's causing me to hurt, what have I been doing over and over again, what wall have been I running into over and over again and causing suffering. How can I change that? What can I do differently? Because you cannot, if it has to do with another person, you cannot change them. They have to realize that they are going downstream and they can choose to start to get a little stronger and have control. Maybe, and the whole idea about going against the stream, I'm not asking you to have a constant swimming effort going up because you're going to get gassed really quickly. Going upstream, I can't help but think my teacher's over in California. He probably has never been out in Texas Hill Country, but I grew up on the Frio River. So I can't help but think of those just gorgeous tree lines in the banks. And um, I want to kind of travel from bank to bank. So you can still go upstream, but what's most efficient if you're having to travel upstream is going side to side, going from one bank to the other, nice and slowly, but surely, not just trying to gas it to get there as quickly as possible. Because ultimately, we're just going towards the horizon. We're never going to touch it. It's just right effort. This is the awakening part. And then you start to realize it's not your fault. This is just how it is. But you can choose moving forward. How are you going to respond to it? Don't ignore it. Learn to deal with it, because you start to learn to deal with it. You start to be sensitive to other people and you start to see how they are dealing with their stuff. And you can't help but want to help or give them suggestions or point them in the direction of something that may have helped you. This is a group effort, a team effort, life is. We are designed, the human species, to be a pack species. We find shelter in each other. And only true shelter, people only know how to build a house because they're aware of the elements. They're aware of everything that needs to be there to protect everything that's inside. It's important to go around like minded individuals who are also seeking this stuff out. It's hard. But as you start to find your people that do that and know how to encourage you and how to keep you afloat, and then you know how to keep them afloat. That's why recovery programs are so incredible. It's all about community. Over time, push through the difficulty of meditation in your first couple of years, because I guarantee you over time you're going to start to taste the fruits. You will, sooner than later. You'll start to notice how, even if it's not for other people, for you, maybe you handled that family member finally a little bit better, right? Family, why are they so hard? Oh, gosh. But you know what? That's part of the stream I see when people are like, all families are dysfunctional. That's going with the stream, normalizing that. We can choose right now to change it with our own family around us. Does that make sense? Because this is how this is unlocking potential that we were given to be able to better relate to each other, to create a little bit more of a harmonious world. If y'all have ever seen the Pixar movie Moana, this is us getting back the heart of Tififi. You know what I mean? Coming back. I love Pixar movies. They just get me by these days. Um, any questions before we sit? Does that make sense for everybody? So when we sit, you kind of got a feel for it in the beginning of where your mind's at today, where mind is at. Um, because, we can do this noble thing of trying to sit here and breathe and meditate. And especially in the first year or two, I know my mind up top was like, what are you doing? Do you have any idea how much of a hold I have on you? I have owned you your whole life. You really think you're going to sit down and try to outsmart me? The mind will do that constantly. Like, what are you doing? This is not going to ignore it. Start to choose not to engage and hop in that boat. Choose to sit by the banks and not engage and sit for that the rest of the 3 minutes, the rest of the 4 minutes, maybe add 1 minute per month. We'll see. It's 8:14 on my clock. This will be right at a 10-minute sit. Traditional Buddhist monks, meditation teachers would never tell you the time. I choose to go against that stream and and tell you how much time you're going to sit. So your mind doesn't freak out. 10 minutes, guys. You can do 10 minutes, right? And in this time, if you freak out, freak out. You're fine. I'm going to bring you back to your breath. Let your breath be just something comfortable. Okay. And then I'm not going to talk afterwards. We're just going to end. I will stay here if anybody wants to stay and chat afterwards, but you don't have to talk. I would rather you enjoy that quiet headspace and enjoy the silence as a gift to help you ease into a good night's rest. We can always chat tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Clear your seat, your lap, your pens, eyes opened or closed, whichever is less distracting. Give yourself permission to go inward. I'm going to formally just invite you into the present moment, how your legs are crossed, propped up, how your seat is, your torso, your hands, the breath, the eyes. Feel the layers of being, physical sensations, even if it's uncomfortable. Try to sit with the discomfort. Don't hold the breath. And just notice how quickly your mind can change from one train of thought to the other. Notice boredom in the mind. Knowing that all of our minds are trying to get us out of the present. In this moment, we are all choosing to sit, learning to see ourselves, learning to tolerate, learning to be with. Maybe give yourself a slow, deep inhale through the nose. And then breath kicks back to autopilot. Remembering that whatever we practice, if we keep practicing, we will get better at it. noticing the conversation happening inside you. Meditation teaches you the skill of deep attention so you can see what's going on in your inner world. And again, after getting a little more information, in this moment, do you feel at home? Do you feel a little more at ease? Keep breathing. As you breathe in, know that you're breathing in. As you breathe out, know that you're breathing out. Feel that you are relaxing in kind awareness. Maybe feel yourself relax in a different way. Knowing that even just sitting here, you are already going against the current. You are making efforts of calming the mind down, teaching it peace. Notice as you sit here, maybe if there is an intense sensation through the body, a very mild, minimal movement just to shift, adjust. Notice if that helps you. Do what you need to do while trying to stay here, now, awakening to what is. Notice you don't have to wait for one more moment to arrive. There's not going to be a better one coming up. Feel yourself in this moment. Hopefully, there's been a shift into less suffering, more ease. However, you are feeling in this moment, may what we did tonight not only benefit you, but those around you this week. Maybe you will have the opportunity to be the calm in the chaos, even if it's for yourself. Your anchor is the breath, the returning to here and now, knowing even in the big swings, it does not last long. Keep breathing. And together, may all beings be happy. May all beings find freedom from suffering. May all beings know peace. Namaste.